Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Integrity Alliance. I'm Brandon, along with my co-host Austin. Today we're going to talk about how honesty is a important part of integrity, and honesty isn't just a one-way street. It's got to be from both directions, customer and the business. So the story that comes to mind is a Mini Cooper that we had in the shop a month or two ago, and they were a little less than honest when they brought it in.
Yeah, so when it came in originally for, it wouldn't go above 25 miles an hour, and it was, I forget what the solenoid's called, the actuator, but it's like a variable valve lift system in it. But the actuator for that was bad. It wouldn't go faster than 25, 35. They also told Alan, our service writer, that the turn signals, headlights, stuff like that didn't work. So I pulled it in, that actuator was just stuck. I was able to get it unstuck, and it would go 60. I drove it for probably 30, 40 miles, and it was fine. Called them, told them I got that working, said that it was stuck. I got it unstuck. It doesn't mean that it won't get stuck in the future, but the solenoid was super expensive. I forget what it cost, but it wasn't cheap at all. I told them that if it were mine, I would just see what happens, as long as you understand that there is a possibility that it could get stuck again. And they were okay with that. At the same time, I was telling them for the turn signals and stuff, that wasn't their main priority, but they did mention it to Alan. I told them that I could look into it, figure out why the handful of things like the power windows didn't work either. I told them I would stay late because I needed the car next day from the sounds of it, but I would stay late and look at it, and then we could order whatever that needed. It ended up being the footwell module. We were all on the same page, and then the next day, I dropped the car off over at our service center. They came to pick it up, and Leanne had called and said that there was an issue with the price or something like that. And I was confused. At that time, we had a Duramax in the shop, and the ABS module went out on it. So I was in the process of flashing the ABS module at that current moment, so I didn't really want to get up and leave and go talk to him. But she ended up getting a hold of you, and then I'll let you tell the rest of the story.
I don't remember what the numbers were off the top of my head, but it was basically, I talked to them, and they were given a price. They told me that they were given a price over the phone. You know, you had talked to them and said that it was going to be, we'll just say $500, you know, to look at this, and the bill ended up being $800 or something. Those aren't accurate numbers, but you know, the bill was higher than what was discussed, and I hadn't talked to you about it. And I'm like, well, she told me the story of, you know, exactly what was said from her perspective and everything. I believe they were in our lobby, and you know, anytime that you're talking with a customer, you know, in the lobby, and you've got other things going on, and I was busy as well, I'm like, well, I can understand where, you know, there was extra diagnostic time, you know, that was charged for, that she says was never communicated to her. And I ended up saying, well, if we gave you this price, we don't adjust our estimates, so we'll charge you what, you know, what you're quoted. She was happy with that, paid the bill, and then I talked to you, and come to find out that you had gave her the price that she heard, but also said that I think it was the footwell module diagnostic, she wanted you to look into it if whatever the circumstances were, and you had told her that it would be, you know, another couple hours of diag time if you had to look into it, and she basically approved that.
She did, and I didn't give a price on that because diag time is diag time. It's going to take as long as it takes to find the issue, and I'm not going to bind myself to a particular price. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so she ended up basically approving the job, but saying that she didn't approve the job. You know, it's that clear communication, not only between the customer and the shop, but actually the people that work in the shop is kind of critical too. We should have had a conversation, and I shouldn't have jumped to the conclusion that what she was telling me was accurate. Going beyond that, they picked up the car, and then that solenoid started sticking again. And I don't even know if they left with the car and it started sticking. I think we ended up towing it back over to the diag shop, and you looked at it.
Yeah, I got it unstuck again. They came to pick it up. Leanne had called, said they were here and were complaining, had questions. So this time I wasn't wrapped up, so I went over there and talked to them myself. Of the handful of things they said, they ended up saying that, how can this be when I didn't fix the car? Or how can this be stuck when you said you did whatever? And I showed them the write-up I made, and I also told them, and the write-up I said directly stated, it is unstuck and working now, but there is a possibility it can stick again in the future. Given the cost of the solenoid, I would recommend driving it and see if it sticks again. That's what they ended up trying to do. But then when they walked in, kind of the same story as when they didn't approve the additional diag time. All of a sudden, it was, you guys didn't fix the car, it's still broken, and it was like, I never said that before. And I think I said it to them 4 or 5 times. I read the actual RO, the description I made of that symptom to them several times, and showed them on the printed out thing that I gave them, and the same thing I said over the phone.
They were also saying that, you know, the windows didn't have a problem when it came in, and the turn signals didn't have a problem, or whatever. All the things that they originally said that there was an issue with, all of a sudden,
There was no issue.
Yeah, none of those issues were present before we touched the car.
They tried blaming all of the electrical issues on us, the whole works, everything that they could do, they just tried to pin it all on us. And the RO I did was very thorough, very descriptive, and they had no leverage, basically. That, we record phone calls too, so they had absolutely none at all. And then on top of that, at some point in the conversation, they talked about bringing their truck.
Yeah, towards the end of the conversation, they wanted to bring an F-150, have us look at an F-150 or something like that. After the Mini Cooper was, you know, resolved, and, you know, the bill was paid and everything was good to go, they wanted to bring another truck to us. And
after that, I told them I wasn't looking at their truck, and I wasn't looking at their Mini Cooper, and I wasn't looking at any of their vehicles anymore.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I just said that. Based off how this went, I said there is no, I said that it's unreasonable. I said I can't reason with unreasonable people.
Right, yeah, exactly. When they start changing the script and start trying to blame us for things that they originally brought the vehicle in for, those aren't the kind of customers that you want. So,
yeah,
you know,
and to paint a picture, it was they walked in and acted as if they thoroughly believed what they were saying.
yeah,
They were like trying to convince me that was the truth.
yeah, it's, customers can be just as dishonest as what repair shops can be. And most customers, the majority of customers are great customers. The majority of them are, you know, honest up front. They just want their car fixed. But there's a handful of them out there that you have to be prepared for, and we'll try and get, you know, something for nothing. I was just watching a video on social media yesterday where a guy was talking about a customer brought in their car and said that they changed the oil on it. The customer changed the oil on it, but they couldn't get the filter off. They just wanted the filter changed. And the guy is like, well, no, we don't do that. It's either a full oil change or it's nothing. And he went over and looked at the car, and the car's knocking and everything else. And his suspicion was they wanted him to change the filter and then blame the engine knocking on the shop. You have to know your customers. Every new customer, most of the time, they're good people. Most of the time, you know, 99% of the time, they're just there to get their car fixed. But that 1% of the time, it's somebody looking for something for nothing and trying to pin you with the blame or what have you. I don't think that there's enough discussion in the industry, you know, to a public perspective of what shops deal with when it comes to this kind of stuff. It is a small percentage of them. I'd like to say it's a small percentage of shops that take advantage of customers also. And you just hear about the negative aspect from the shop perspective, but it seems like you never hear the negative aspect from the customer perspective because shops don't talk about it.
Yeah,
you know, shops can't review customers. You know.
Yeah, and we run into that several times among different customers, similar to that Mini Cooper story. And another thing too I found out is I was at our parts store in town, and I always chit-chat with the guys at the counter a little bit. They knew who the person with the Mini Cooper was. They actually recommended them to come to us. Come to find out, they told me, yeah, they also burned Jerry, another auto shop, and they actually burned him somehow, some way also.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming they just go around to different places and see what they can get for free at each place.
It's nice to have those relationships inside of the industry. You know, we didn't hear that directly from Jerry, but we heard it from our parts store. But we've got a really good working relationship with all of the shops in town, and if we run into a customer that's like that and we happen to see their car at another shop, we'll absolutely let them know and say, you know, be careful of these people because this is what happened, you know. And that's another thing that customers, I guess, don't realize is, and it's not that way everywhere, but it should be, where we don't view other shops in the area as our competitors. There's plenty of work for everybody, and you know, we do a lot of towing for Jerry, and
Yeah, and Bill is Jerry's son. Jerry and Bill have bailed me out of a few situations where I needed something and we didn't have it, but they did, and then vice versa, same thing for them.
Yeah,
we've saved each other's butts a couple times.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you got, you know, a special tool or something like that that's needed, and I think one of the things was just we didn't have the right cone for a wheel balancer, and
Yeah, for some huge wheels or something like that. Yeah.
yeah, when in the automotive industry, when you work together with other companies, it makes a big difference. Customers can definitely be dishonest and throw shops for a loop and try and get something for nothing, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the clear communication is critical too. We had a Tesla that came in and we quoted out some front end work on it, and Alan talked to him and gave him the pricing for everything. They approved all of the work. After the work was done, the bill was higher than what they thought. And what ended up happening, I went back and looked at or listened to the phone conversation. When Alan quoted it out, we did tires, we did control arms on it, and they started asking questions of, well, how much would it be for just the tires, and how much are just the control arms? And Alan thought, well, they were asking how much were just the parts of the control arms, so he gave them the parts of the control arms. You know, that was $500. So in their mind, they're thinking $1,300 for, you know, $800 for tires and $500 for control arms, and the bill ended up being $1,500 because of the labor to put the control arms in.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they came to pay their bill, it's $200 higher, and it's like, oh, I thought it was only $1,300, and now it's $1,500. What happened? And we went back and listened to the phone call, and we explained to them exactly what happened, and we've instituted a new policy now where, so a lot of times you'll do an estimate, and there will be, you know, multiple things on that estimate that needs to be addressed, and we'll tell the customer, you know, this thing can wait or that thing can wait, you know, it's not a safety issue, but it's something that needs to be done in the future, and they'll decline that work. And we have a policy now that once the presentation is done and all of the information is given, the last thing of the approval process is, okay, this is what you've approved and this is the total out the door price. Then there's no confusion, there's no, okay, there's no adding by the customer, there's no, you know, misrepresentations of, you know, oh, I only told you how much the parts were, not the labor, which, you know, doesn't make any sense. If you give the bottom line, okay, this is what we're going to do for you, Mr. Customer, and this is how much the total bill is going to be, it takes care of all of those communication issues.
Yeah, I remember that Saturday I came in. She wanted to pick it up on Monday. I came in, I actually called her, talked to her for like 20 minutes, explained to her like what you just said, this is what happened. And she was very appreciative, happy that I called her and talked to her, came in and dealt with it on a Saturday rather than just waiting till Monday. We just came to a resolution, a solution to the problem, and she was happy. We were happy. She'll keep bringing her car back, and her family owns Teslas too. So all around it was dealt with properly, I believe, on our end. And it was a good learning experience for Alan also.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, she's a very reasonable customer, and she was 100%. It was the confusing conversation from both sides that caused the issue. If Alan would have just said, this is what the total price is out the door, that confusion would have never happened. And that's why we instituted that policy, so we can prevent that from happening in the future, because we don't ever want there to be miscommunication or misunderstanding, especially when it comes to the cost of the repair that they're expecting. I've seen a lot of service advisors where when they do an estimate and they're talking to the customer, they'll give each price individually because they're afraid to give the big number, the total number. That's, you can get into trouble a lot of times by doing that. So don't be afraid of, I mean, the cost is the cost, and I would much rather have a customer say, you know, I can't afford it, or, you know, we got to adjust the estimate, you know, when they're on the phone or when you're originally talking to them, than when they're standing at the counter and we've already done the work. It just makes for an easier transaction when they know the exact cost and what it's going to be out the door, and then there's no confusion.
Yeah, and the difference between that story and the Mini Cooper story was that was an error more so on our end, the Tesla story, but the Mini Cooper story was just complete dishonesty on one side of the spectrum,
Yeah.
on the customer side.
There's not many customers that we've had that have tried to get something for nothing or tried to blame us for something that wasn't.
The only other story I can think of is that Jeep.
Which Jeep?
It was four-wheel drive, but it was just two-wheel drive, or she bought it as if it was a four-wheel drive.
Oh, yeah.
She was told it was. And then we got it running, and the plugs were fouled, and ended up needing O2 sensors. It was just pegging the computer rich, so it was dumping fuel into it, or pegging it lean, falsely lean. So it was dumping fuel, trying to compensate for it, and would foul out plugs. So I put plugs in it, got it running, gave her the total estimate, and then tried saying, it didn't run when it came in. She thought that it was going to run. She could just pick it up now. I said, no, it's going to happen again. I wouldn't be surprised if we go out right now and it doesn't start again. I mean, it was just blowing like rich smoke out of the exhaust, like clouds of it. Didn't have had gasket issues or anything like that. Just was that rich. And then tried blaming us for it not running and saying, basically said that we were the ones that caused it not to run when it came in not running, but we had to make it run to determine why the plugs were getting fouled.
Right.
So I told her that it was under warranty. The plugs we'd be able to warranty them or clean them or whatever. And then that was another story of we will never look at any of your vehicles ever again. Not afraid to fire customers. We are anyways.
Yeah.
The ones that are deserving of it.
Yeah, anybody that's going to try and blame us for a problem that was pre-existing.
Yeah, and I think I spent probably half an hour talking to her, trying to explain it to her, and she just kept repeating herself. So then I actually ended up calling you and say, maybe you can talk some sense into her, for lack of better terms. And the same thing ended up happening, and it basically ended up with just pay for the tow. We're towing it back to your house, and
I think she was in a bad situation all the way around because, and who knows?
I do remember this now.
Yeah.
I forget about this.
Who knows how much truth there is to it or what have you, but, you know, she bought that vehicle from somebody that told her that it was a four-wheel drive. They actually put a four-wheel drive badge on the back of the trunk, the lift gate, and it wasn't a four-wheel drive, it was a two-wheel drive. So
And rear-wheel drive on top of that. We live in Wisconsin, and rear-wheel drives in Wisconsin are basically useless 9 months of the year.
yeah, right. So I think she overpaid for it, and this is me trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, which is probably not justified, you know, from our perspective, because she was unreasonable, and she did kind of, I mean, she tried to put the blame on us for it not running right when it obviously came in not running right. You never know the background of the story, and that doesn't justify anything, but my perspective is she was taken advantage of when she bought the vehicle. She overpaid for it. She thought it was a four-wheel drive, and it was only a two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive. And so now she's going to take it out on us because she can't she doesn't want to put any more money into this thing because it's not worth what she paid for it. And, you know, it is what it is, but it's frustrating when you have to deal with that. So, you know, it's also frustrating when customers don't listen to your advice and don't listen to, you know, what your diagnostics is. You know, the Cadillac is a perfect example of that with the transmission issues that he brought it in. And I knew this before it even got to us, you know.
I knew it also, but he was persistent, and it's just one of those things you got to do it once, and then when you have good reason to decline work from them, then you have good reason.
Yeah.
And that's still at the diag shop, and it's been a month and a half now. Came in initially, it doesn't shift basically, it doesn't engage drive. It does engage drive, but the clutches internal to the transmission are just bad. It slips. I can put it on the rack, put it in drive, and it has, I mean, there's not the weight of the car, so the tires will spin. The pressure control solenoid is good. I went through it. I said it is an internal transmission issue. There is no way around it. It needs a transmission. On top of that, it's a North Star. It misfires. There's someone put an outer tie rod on it. Like, it looks shiny, brand new, but the inner tie rod is junk on the same side. I just told them, I didn't fully inspect the whole thing, but I just basically told them it's not worth putting a transmission in, and it's not even safe to drive as it is now. There was other issues with it other than the inner tie rod too, but just told them that it wasn't worth fixing. And then it turned into put a transmission in it, we don't care. And then his son was supposed to stop in. It's been a month and a half. He still hasn't, but he claims that he stopped by 8 times when I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it's been a never-ending story like that. And we've just been trying to
Get rid of
it, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think you finally tracked him down as he was trying to dodge you, you know, and said, you know, we've got till this Thursday. If it's not out here Thursday, we're going to start charging storage. And
yeah, I told him that if it wasn't gone by today and towed out of here, I was going to tow it to our sales lot, basically out back, and it was going to collect storage there. I have no more room there. If it could be there, then it's not that big of a deal, but it's to the point where I need to make room for stuff, and that's one thing that has to go away. Every time he stops in, it's been probably 12 times. Every single time, the first thing out of his mouth is, I know it doesn't need a transmission.
yeah, it just needs a sensor. And it's because somebody told him that it needed a sensor or what have you, because it's got a code in it that says, you know, a pressure sensor is low or something like that. And
yeah, and keep in mind, too, that when it came in, the transmission fluid was filled. There's the fill spot on the top of the transmission on those, right to the brim.
completely full.
Completely full. I mean, I could see the foaming, the churning of the fluid. You know what I mean? There's air in the system, or it's churning, foaming, so that's not healthy for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I set the transmission fluid properly, but in the back of my mind, I wonder if the same guy telling him it needs a sensor is also the one that filled his transmission right to the brim.
Right, exactly.
And there was a transmission leak on it, I believe, from the cooler or a line or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was just low at one point, and then they way overfilled it, and somehow the clutch packs got fried in that whole process.
Yeah.
It's just there's not enough friction material to grab to move the car, but there is to move just the wheels.
Again, you can try and communicate as much as possible with a lot of people, and they just don't listen to what you're telling them or want to get another. Actually, he said that he was going to tow it to, or have us tow it to somebody else and have them fix it. And it's like, fine, just please take it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, there is no doubt in my mind that it needs a transmission, so we can take it wherever he wants. And if they tell him it needs something else, unfortunately, you're wasting your money.
right. Right, and at the end of the day, the car's not worth fixing.
No, not with the misfire issues and everything else that has going on.
You know, to put this in perspective, we've talked about 3 customers, and we've been in business for 5 years. Thousands of ROs, and we got 3 customers that we've had issues with. It's not a common occurrence by any means. It's good to discuss those issues because other shops have those issues. And honestly, if a shop doesn't have a phone system that records the conversations, that has been a key thing in our business. Anytime that there's a dispute or anytime that there's a issue, we can go back and listen to the conversation and listen to how it was handled from both sides, and protect ourselves as far as approvals go, or just hear what the conversation was. And a lot of times, just like the Tesla, for example, that was a breakdown of communication on our end. And when you can actually listen to the conversation, learn from that, and learn how to correct those situations, you have a whole lot less of the situations versus not having that information to go back and listen to or look at and determine what exactly happened. The recorded phone calls, I think, are critical for our business. We don't listen to 99% of the phone calls, but when there's an issue, we can go back and listen to it, determine where the breakdown was. Having cameras are important in a business. That's as important as having phone conversations recorded. You don't do it because you have issues. You do it because if you do have issues, you can go back and you can verify things. And it protects the business. It protects the customers. If we have a vehicle that's parked out front and a car backs into it, another customer backs into it, like that Tesla, at least if you have video of the incident happening, you can show who it was that did it. Actually, it was probably 3 years ago at our sales lot. We had somebody, I think they delivered a car, or they delivered a part or whatever. They had a semi and they pulled it in our back lot and then backed into our neighbor's lot. And when they left, they completely sideswiped or put the trailer over the top of the hood of a Honda Ridgeline.
Yeah.
And at that time, we didn't have cameras, and the neighbor came over and said, "What the heck happened to this truck?" And it's like, we don't go in your lot. We don't need to. We've got plenty big enough lot that we turn around all of our trucks and everything in our lot. And then we thought about it and said, well, we had a delivery, and
they came on a semi.
It came on a semi.
18-wheeler, and they probably backed into it to get out.
Yep.
And then we looked, there were still tire tracks, and you could see exactly what had happened. It was more than likely the semi. I didn't see it, so I can't be 100% sure, but 99% sure, given the story and when it happened and how it happened, it was more than likely the semi getting out of our lot.
Yeah, I think he called the semi company, and they denied anything happened and everything else. And if we have cameras up now, primarily because of that, and I have a camera pointed right in that direction, 360-degree view of our sales lot, so that if anything happens, we know exactly what happened. It's a cover your ass kind of a thing.
And I noticed when vehicles were at other shops and then come to us, like that Buick, actually, that Rainier is a good example. When they left, they called and said, now the brake lights don't work. Long story short, it was at another shop. It didn't run. They threw 3 different things at it, still didn't run. We towed it to us. It needed an ignition switch. It runs. They came and picked it up and then called us and said the brake lights didn't work and it was our fault. Or that's what, I didn't hear. Alan answered the call at that time, and then he told me what it sounded like to him. So I kind of take everything with a grain of salt without talking to him. But I called them, asked them to hit the brake light. Do any of the brake lights come on? They said, yeah, the third brake light. I said, I was looking at a wiring diagram. I said, there's a fuse that feeds both the rear tail lights, left and right. I said, the stop lamp switch is obviously working. I said, so it's probably either a fuse
or bulbs.
I said, so I would do that. And I said, the shop it was at before, what they did, that probably didn't cause it. I said, we didn't cause it, towing it. I said, it is just the way that it worked out. I said, there is no way that we could have caused your brake lights to not work.
Yeah, and that's an important part, important thing to think about too. It was old Buick Rainier. It's coming close to the end of its useful life, but they wanted it running, so we ended up making it run. That was all that we did. And we've been trying to implement the DVI on every vehicle, and we haven't got there yet. I mean, we do DVIs on most vehicles, but when, I think a lot of times when you get something like that comes in that's used to or close to the end of its useful life, and all you are tasked to do is make it run again so that they can, go on with their day or do whatever it is that they're going to want to do with it. I mean, that particular vehicle probably has $5,000 worth of work that needs to be done, on the low end, and we didn't do a DVI on that vehicle. And if we would have done a DVI on that vehicle, then we would have had all of that stuff documented. So, I think the digital vehicle inspections are not just selling tools, they're also a cover your ass tool as well, and we should really be taking pictures of every vehicle before they come into the shop, take pictures of the dash, take pictures of everything. So you have, a base starting point of the condition of the vehicle, and then inspect the vehicle and, show all of the things, and it gives the customer an overall view of their vehicle. A lot of customers think that, that's just a tool because we're trying to get you to buy everything, but I mean, at the end of the day, you've got a vehicle that came in with a problem that you didn't document, and then you ship it back to the customer after you fix the problem that they asked you to fix, but that problem is there, and maybe they didn't know about it, maybe they did, but either way, you're on the hook for it. Trying to say that you caused that issue, DVIs kind of solve that, and it's, that's kind of a hot topic along with flat rate is, technicians aren't paid for DVIs. At the end of the day, it's something that really should be done on every vehicle. Yeah.
But another story too was Abdul's Volkswagen, the hybrid that was at the franchise Volkswagen dealer, and they quoted a transmission because it was a hybrid and it wouldn't go into hybrid mode, but it was losing line pressure because of that O-ring in the mechatronic unit. There was that, it got dinged somehow in the rear quarter, and after we fixed it, I mean, keep in mind, Volkswagen quoted a whole transmission and mechatronic unit, and we replaced just the seal that was bad. Also, that's not in Volkswagens, that's not like a Volkswagen approved repair procedure, if that makes sense.
Volkswagen wouldn't go to that depth. They just say replace the transmission.
Yeah, they don't go any farther than this is the issue, replace the transmission because of it. That's why it's not an approved repair, but it is a repair. But it got dinged, and he ended up calling and asking if we knew anything about it. And that was another story where it came from another place, and it has this ding. We were the one that gave it back to him, so we're the one that gets asked all the questions. And we had cameras at that time, and I think that I actually looked and just fast forwarded through everything, and nothing even came close to it. So it was a matter of showing him and proving that it didn't happen on our property, at least.
Right.
So
yeah, that's another one that we didn't do a DVI on. I mean, that was before DVIs were really a super big thing, or at least on our radar. And had we done a DVI on that, it would have had the dent, prior. I'm sure this has always been an issue in the automotive industry, as far as, damage done to vehicles while they're on the lot and stuff like that. But with the technology nowadays, you can eliminate a lot of those concerns if you're actually doing the digital vehicle inspection on every one before it's ever pulled in. We've got them set up, and I've made it part of the service advisor's job to take the exterior photos, take a picture of the dash, and all of the things everything other than what mechanically is wrong with it, and we split it between the service advisor and the technician. Sometimes the service advisor will pull it in, sometimes the technician will, but the service advisor should be doing the exterior photos and everything else when they're writing up the repair order, and have that all done before the technician ever gets to the car. It's a good system as long as it's implemented and it's done thoroughly on every vehicle. I mean, at the end of the day, clear communication is critical in customer business relationships. Being thorough with your estimates, being thorough with DBIs, having the tools available, like recorded phone calls and security cameras and stuff like that, that all makes things a whole lot easier anytime there's a conflict that arises. And again, it's 1% of the customers that you might have a problem with, but that 1% of customers could be thousands of dollars that, it could cost a business if they're not diligent in documenting things. And if there's a lack of communication and the price is different, I don't ever like it when a customer doesn't know upfront what our bill is going to be. And when that bill changes, that's why I took the stance with the Mini. They're telling me that this is what they were quoted, and now it's a couple $100 or $300 more. I don't like that as a business owner. I want to charge the customer what we quoted for it, but customers are dishonest also, and you got to take that into consideration. So communication is key, and having good communication and being able to verify things is how you run an effective business.
I was happy that they did come back and I was able to talk to them, because when they came back, going back to the Mini Cooper story, I was happy to remind them that I called her, told her I was going to stay late to diagnose it. It'd be an hour or two, whatever it was. And then when you showed up, you act like you had no idea. And then, like I said, they want to bring their truck in. It was at that point,
We're done.
You're dead to me.
There it is. Well, on that note, I think we'll leave it there. I want to thank you for watching another episode of the Automotive Integrity Alliance podcast. And remember, cars are complicated, but integrity shouldn't be. Till next time, we'll see you.